Hello, everyone. This is JD Calderon. This is Indy Comics Explained, and yet again, I brought another fantastic group of independent comic book professionals. And let me tell you something. Tonight, Jay's not here, so this will be a really good show. Anyway, so without further ado, let's bring on our co-host for the night, Mr. Tom Hutchison.
Captain co-host. Thank you, JD. Appreciate the invite as always. Tom Hutchison, Big Dog Inc. writer, publisher, art director, shipping guy, all things Big Dog Inc. We'll have we're a week out from launching the next Critter campaign, April 6th for Critter number 23.
Very nice, very nice. First guest. What's up, Peter?
Oh, hey, Peter Breau, comic book creator. Little bit about myself. I've written titles for Antarctic Press, Caliber Comics. I wrote sold out, best-selling series These Damn Kids for Second Sight, and I'm now have 2 monthly titles coming out starting in the month of May, with Blood Moon Comics.
All right, cool. And Peter, you still got the coolest name in comics.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right. We have Aaron. What's up, Aaron?
Oh, nothing much. I'm the creator of, lots of stuff. Writer, creator, illustrator. Okay, I'm getting some weird. I apologize. Like, it's catching up with. Weird. Okay, we'll do this way. Yeah, writer, illustrator, creator of my Goblin of Goblins. I'm doing Knocked right now, which your new issue just came out on the store. So I'm here to pitch the newest issue, and I'm working on issue 3 as we speak.
Cool. What's up, Sean?
I'm Sean Wood. I am the writer for The Fog Within 1 and 2.
All right, cool. Who fell out? Somebody fell out.
And hey, everybody, I'm David Whalen. I'm the owner of Correct Hanah Comics, correcthanahcomics.com. I have issues 1 through 25 of our ongoing series, The Offspring, that just got collected in our Omnibus Volume 2. And last week, I just put out our second 100-plus page graphic novel, Late and Lightspeed. And you can find it all on correcthanahcomics.com.
All right, cool. And we have... What's up, Dennis? How you doing?
Oh, busy. It's the last day of the Kickstarter, so just trying to, wait the clock out at this point.
Gotcha. Do me a favor, put the link in the private chat, all right?
Sure.
And while you're doing that, if you can, introduce yourself, sir.
Sure. So my name is Dennis Robinson. I'm the writer-creator of the graphic novel series Lycan Solomon's Odyssey. First 2 books are already out. Third one, as I just mentioned, is on Kickstarter at lycanbook.com, and it runs until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So we are already successful. It's our 3rd successful Kickstarter. So now we're just working on stretch goals.
All right. Very nice. Very nice. All right, gentlemen. So let's get down to brass tacks. As they say. The show question. What's up, Carlos? So the show question is ego. How much do you have? How much do you need? Right? So we all know we need a certain amount of ego to be in this business, but how much do you really need? Right? So let's start it off. Let's go with Dennis. How do you feel about that?
Well, so that's a tough one because I am typically very self-deprecating. So in terms of my ego, it goes as far as me just knowing that it's a good book. But I don't really get that much of a big head about things. In terms of like how much ego should you have? Well, that kind of also depends on what you're trying to do. Like, for instance, I go to conventions a lot more than I care to sell the books. And I did 27 last year. And the people I notice who do the best at shows like that are people like my first editor, Henri Kumpen, who is just ego out the wazoo, like the most confident human being you'll ever meet. And he can get out there and he can do like the carnival barky type of thing, and he'll flip thousands of books in a single show. It's not my personality type. I just can't do that. basically I wait until somebody kind of lingers at the table for a little bit, and then I go into the pitch and, try and let the book do the talking for itself a little bit. Like I give them the elevator pitch, but the whole point of that is to just get them to pick up the book and look at it, because I think the art stands on its own. So that's sort of like the gateway to get people in. So I would say ego's important but it depends on what your goals are and how you operate, I would say.
All right, fair enough. Sean, what are your thoughts?
So I'd say with ego, I need more ego, honestly, because I'm still the new guy. So I'm trying to prove myself. So if I come out swinging like, hey, I'm the greatest thing ever, no one's ever going to look at my book. So I can't do that. But yeah, I would say middle ground. So when you have a ton of books, you can have more ego because you have more fans, you have that longevity, and you've already proven yourself. So it's not bragging where you shouldn't be bragging. You should be bragging at that point. But I need definitely a lot more ego. And to Dennis's point, actually, he got me at Baltimore. I wasn't even.
Oh.
I was just walking down. He's like, "Hey, you need a bag for that poster?" And that's how he got me in. And I got your book. So it worked.
That's another way to get people to stop, is to give them free bags and sleeves and stuff.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, cool. David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with what everybody just said. I also think that on some level, it's a fake it till you make it situation. Sometimes you're sitting there drawing, you're like, gosh, I'm really getting it done. This is the best thing I've ever done. You get 2 panels after that one, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst. So it's a matter of just continuing to move forward. I think for comic book creators, especially when you're just getting started, the hardest part is just the getting started, the saying, I think I've got a good idea. I know I can draw. Let's just keep going. And I would say that maybe I'm going to make the number a little too big here, but I'd say probably 80 to 85% of the people that get started stop because they don't feel like they're progressing forward the way they'd want to. It's the rest of the people that keep moving forward and keep getting better and better and better. And I think that's a lot of times where that ego comes in going, gosh, it's not perfect now, but if I just keep going, I can keep trucking it out, keep getting books out, keep getting good stuff out. And the confidence starts to grow with that.
All right, cool. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
As far as marketing, I have no ego in that area because I'm not good at it at all. As far as an artist, yeah, because I've worked with other people. I don't play well with others because I usually have an idea. Since I finish so much of my artwork on my own and do my writing, I know the goal I'm looking for. And most people who mess with my stuff, give it to a colorist, whatever, I'm like, no, and it kind of sucks all the wind out of me. So that's probably something I need to let go of to get further along. But I don't know. I still do everything myself. Even figured out the coloring. So I do coloring. I do it all. I don't know. I've always just kind of been like, I know what I want. I know what I'm trying to execute. And like, because I've had some people do some color stuff, and I'm just like, I remember telling one lady, no, these are the colors you use, and she came back with totally different colors. So I'm like, fine, whatever you want to do, go for it. And so yeah, I gave up. I also work pretty fast as far as my work ethics. I don't like people who don't get their stuff done. So if you're not going to get it done, I'm just going to do it for you and leave you behind. I'm not going to wait for you. So.
All right, cool. Peter, what are your thoughts?
I think a little bit of ego is not a bad thing. I'll tell you a short little story. About 5 years ago, they had a local contest for the Fundy Fan Fest, and it's a local. It was a big comic convention for the city, and they had a contest, and it was like, create the character for the Fundy Fan Fest, and one of the things you had to do was you had to go and pitch it to the Knuckle Down Studios, Heroes Beacon, Bell Alliant, which was the big sponsor for it. And I had no idea what I was doing, and I went in there and just bullshit my way through this meeting, and they said, yeah, okay, you can be part of the contest. And then I won the contest. So it was a nice little ego boost. But I did realize that after the fact that if I want to work as part of a team, then I'd better keep the ego in check, right? Because you know, like for me, comics is a team effort. It's not an I thing, right? Like I couldn't draw Stickman save my life, right? You know, so I have to, you know, get along with the artists that I work with, right? Or no one would ever want to do anything with me, right? You know, and I've been blessed enough to, you know, work with some really good artists over the years, eh? You know, and if I was a tyrannical maniac who, you know, thought it was, you know, oh no, you didn't draw that right, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, or like, you know, whatever I think. This is what I think you mean by ego, right? You know what I mean? And then, geez, all I'd ever hear is crickets, and nobody'd ever want to play with me, right? So I have to, you know, be able to keep that part of me in check, right?
All right, fair enough. Mr. Hutchison, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so this is a really interesting conversation. I'm going to go in a direction here. We're going to take this a little deeper, and really the only person here that talked about it really was David, because to me there's a difference, and there's a really fine line between ego and egotistical. Really, is what we're talking about, like taking that into a long realm, and confidence, which is the other side of that coin. And I think a lot of people struggle with understanding confidence versus ego. And we've seen this for decades upon decades in the comic industry, because we'll see guys like Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane being called, oh, these guys are dicks, these guys are assholes, they're all egomaniacs. I'm like, these guys are confident in what they do. Now, that doesn't mean they're not dicks too on occasion, but it starts with confidence, right? And these guys have confidence in themselves and what they do. I mean, you've heard the stories of Todd going in and they're telling him like, now you're not doing these spaghetti webbings anymore. And he's like, yes, I am. I'm going to do these spaghetti webbings. And this is what we're going to get. And he changes the way things are done. Right. And that's sort of a confidence / leadership role within his world, that art world. And I think that a lot of people, particularly people that are just coming into comics, making their own stuff, especially, they don't have the confidence level yet to kind of, we've discussed a little bit on this panel already. We kind of had this lack of confidence. So I hear a lot of what's the term? What's the term where people are the complex, the inferiority complex, right? We see a lot of people that come in, and even though they're like, oh, I like what I did, they get into this and they start to see other people's work, and they start to compare their stuff to other people's work, and they start to be like, oh my God, I'm not as good as David, I'm not as good as Sean, something's wrong here. But what you have to have is confidence in yourself. It doesn't matter if you're better than David or Sean. It only matters that you're good within yourself. Right? You have to have confidence in yourself, your book, your artist, your colorist, your printer, your letterer. As long as you have the confidence to then step up, particularly like at a con, and say like, look, here's my book. I want you to look at it. I want you to see the characters. I want to tell you about this story. That's what we all want and need within ourselves. And there are levels of confidence, of course. But I think that the ego part is where we can run into problems if the ego sort of jumps the shark. High confidence is great. I love working with artists that have high confidence. Dude, I need you to draw this and the car, and it's upside down and whatever. And the artist is like, yeah, man, I got you. Let's do this. But then I have artists over the years who have basically told me what they're going to do. And I'm like, well, that's not what I want. You have to understand, I'm paying you. I need what I need so that I can then sell it down the line. I'll listen to your thought process. Tell me what you think. But at the end of the day, I have to make the decision that's best for the business. And if you, as a hired gun, are swirling in your ego as I'm only going to do it this way, that's called ultimatums. And you are probably going to lose 90% of the time. Because most people that have the confidence in what they're doing are going to be like, look, this is not working. I need what I need, and I'm paying you for what I need. So, and I've had that a number of times with a number of people, and I was just like, look, that's it. We're done. For every person that's going to give me that ego and that attitude, there's 20 guys behind him in line that I can just move the ball to them and say, it's your turn. Score a touchdown for me. So it's a really interesting conversation because I think that there is a level of high confidence that throws people off that aren't used to high confidence. Whether it's you're talking about something, whether it's you're producing something, whatever. And so that can often get misconstrued as, oh my God, that guy's an egomaniac because he's just talking about blah, 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 whatever. But really, it's just a confidence level of, I feel good about what I'm saying. I feel good about what I'm showing you. I feel good about all of the bubble that we exist in. And so when you talk about the ego and the egotistical part, I think there's an internal ego that you need to have for yourself, right? You need to have external confidence and internal ego. But you have to be able to control and kind of turn it on and off. It's all contextual. If you're stepping into a room, let's say you're going to go do a panel with Todd McFarlane, right? You need to have confidence for the people watching you, but inside you need to turn the ego on because otherwise Todd is going to wipe you away off the table. He will take everything. But if you turn the ego on in that moment and you can sort of become the Hulk at that time, you can then stand next to Todd at this panel and sort of fight for time because he's going to take the mic. You got to take the mic from him sometimes. So there's moments in time where it's valuable, but you got to learn when to turn it on and when to turn it off.
Fair enough. Hold on. I just wanted to address the, like
JD, this is JD. I'm listen, here we go. Right. I'm going to turn it on. JD, I'm here because this is the show about ego. And we all know that means it's me.
And then because sure, because Jay has no ego. He can't afford it.
No.
Yeah. And then
we can do a follow-up show on your show on Saturday, JD.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, is all the interesting shows really happen when he's not here. And it was, Jesus Christ. Okay. Anyway, and then look at this. Talk about no ego. Very, very just soft. Just soft person. Weak-willed. Just terrible. But yeah, I agree with Tom and just everybody. What pretty much everyone said is it's one of these things. There's one thing I see is that there do seem to be people who come out who seem to be overly confident, and sometimes it sometimes feels like they're overly confident in areas where you're just like maybe you should chill a little. But the thing is though is here's one thing is if they're putting their best work forward, their best foot forward, right? Go for it. Because you're going to need that ego. We're in independent comic books, and this chews people up and spits them out like nothing. Think of, I don't know how, I've been doing it since 92. Tom's been doing it for a minute. The rest of you guys have been in for a minute. Think of all the people you no longer see. All the guys who you've seen at shows, and you might have seen them with that issue 1, possibly even in issue 2, gone the next year for whatever reasons. It could be family, friends, whatever. It could be just something happened.
And even complete companies have disappeared.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not to even mention that. Yes. Just disappear for previews altogether. It's like, poof, just gone. A line of 8 books gone. Right? It happens all the time.
Do you think that comes from them starting it over a want of making money rather than a want of creating good books?
Yes.
Or do you think they usually have?
And that's not to tear down the creators that are there, but most of the time you see those publishers are there to take the product and then shuffle it down one more line to try and get Hollywood to take notice. Too many of them kind of seem to be IP farms to me versus let's make comics.
Yep.
Plus, with indie comics, especially if you're like myself, the writer, and you're paying the rest of the team, if your books, they can get very expensive pretty quickly. And if you don't have the finances to sort of keep that thing going, especially if anything, happens like a medical issue or anything like that, that just impacts it even further. And I've seen a couple of people that I've done Kickstarters alongside with in terms of they were doing one the same time I was doing one. And I noticed one of them, they said, hey, if we don't fund this, then I'm not making any more of these books. Me, I'm just too damn stubborn. I'm already too deep in the hole. Like these books, they're going to happen one way or another. Even if it kills me, I'm going to make these damn books. So, but like, that's the difference. Like, I remember going out to dinner with a group of, they weren't indie people necessarily. They were a little bit like middle tier, I would say, like between all the way big, like Marvel, DC, and not quite as, low on the totem pole as I am. And I'd said, oh, I'm staying. This was at Baltimore, actually, Sean. And we were out to dinner, and it's like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going back to my buddy's house. He's about 40 minutes out of town. They're like, why aren't you staying in a hotel? I was like, well, because hotels cost money. And like, I'm an indie person. I'm trying to save as much money as I can. And they're like, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I said, what do you do on your book? And he goes, everything. I said, okay. My book cost me $22,500 to make. And he goes, yeah, no, I would stay at my buddy's house too. I said, yeah. Like, I do Dragon Con every year, and I usually moderate a few panels on Indy Comics. And to answer the other point that Tom had said about Todd, like talking, part of that is also having a good moderator who could spin the plates, because they have to take a breath at some point, and as soon as they go to breathe, you just switch it to somebody else, so that way other people can get in on the conversation. But one of the things I've heard numerous times from indie creators who used to work for the big companies, and it's literally every year they say the same thing at these panels, which is, if you're getting into this to make money, you've gotten into the wrong business. You do this for the love of the game. You do not get into it to strike it rich or something like that. It's just probably most likely not going to happen that way.
I could say, how many artists? I know David's an artist, and then how many other artists are on here than just Writers Curious? No, they're just David. Okay.
I think Aaron and I are the only ones that actually write and draw our books. Right?
Yeah. Coming as an artist, it's funny what Tom is saying about the creative control and having the artists. To me, I'm like, if you're not going to collaborate with the artists or give them some sort of creative endeavor inset into the book, then we're just going to walk away. Writers don't like to be treated as a pencil pusher. Artists don't like to be treated as pencil pushers either. If we don't have any sort of creative input, I mean, it's like, well, I'm paying you just to draw stuff. And I've seen so many people say that, and then I watch the writers, and usually the writing sucks, or the writers are not artists and they don't know what they're talking about. When you try to tell them what is wrong, how to make the book better, oh no, I know what's good, I know what's better, and then you just basically watch a train wreck in slow motion. That's what you watch. I've seen this, and I've dealt with, a lot of professional clients in tech industry, and I just turn my brain off and do what they say and never give my input because they don't want it. Does their stuff look generic as hell? Yeah. Does it look like crap? Yes. Do they have any artistic talent? No. They don't. They're not trained as artists. And so this is the thing is like when writers come in, and this is the writer ego, especially the person publishing the book, if you're not going to listen to the creative artists that you hire, then why hire them?
Listen, we hire them because we want Dance Monkey Dance. That's why.
Yeah.
That's probably a spot on description.
We hire them because we've seen what they can do, and we believe that it will translate to what it is that we're doing. There are a lot of artists out there that I won't hire because I don't believe what they do translates to what I do. So if I've hired you, if I've said, hey, dude, I like what you see, or I like what you do, I want to see what you do with our stuff. That's why you're there. But you're not there to tell me how to redesign what's already there. You're not there to tell me how my story is being told. You're not there to tell me any of that kind of stuff. All you're there to tell me is, Tom, I hear your concept for this cover. What if instead of a back shot, it was this, or if it was a different perspective or whatever. And in those situations, I go, oh yeah, okay. You know what? I like that. Let's do that reverse angle that you thought about, and let's do it. And I've talked to artists literally hundreds, if not thousands of times about those types of things. Yeah. And if I like the idea, then we go with it. I mean, it's open. I've even told my storytellers, look, if you're putting out a script, or if you're drawing my script and you see visually that there's a better way to move the characters through the panels, tell me, and let's run through it. And a handful of times I've been like, yeah, that makes sense. And other times it's like, no, I did it this way purposely. Yeah. Like the story beats are here for a purpose. But there have been times where I'm like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
That's right. Let's fix that. So absolutely collaboration is there. But at the end of the day, whoever is paying the bill gets the final say. And that's the only way that it can be.
I guess
If you as
Yeah.
the artist insist on producing something that I don't like, I now have to take it and sell it in order to make my money. And if I don't think that I can sell it, then I lose, right? Because you've already been paid. Hey, dude, here's $500. Thanks for the cover that I didn't want, that I now have to try and sell that I didn't want. Now, if I pick wrong and I say, hey, dude, I need you to do this cover my way, and I pick wrong and I have to sell it and I lose, then it's on me. But it can never be, hey, artist, I'm going to go with you because you want to do it this way, even though I feel like it's wrong. Because if it doesn't sell, are you giving me a refund?
Right.
Right, but
You're
it
covering
shouldn't
his
be
losses.
also on the artist to also sell the cover too. In other words, it's weird to me to sometimes think that the writer is in charge of the team. If it's a collaborative effort, there should be no boss.
Okay, let's
per
start
se.
there. First of all, collaborative effort would mean something like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's almost unheard of in the world of comics, right? That does happen, but it's almost unheard of.
No, that's
Most
how
of the
manga's
time,
made.
That has nothing to do with comics. Let's talk with comics, American comics, because that's what we all do here, right? If you want to go into different business models and so on, there are, like I just said, there are plenty of different business models. But in the world of comics, there is a right in the small guys. You know, we're not talking about Marvel and DC, even though it's similar. There's a writer who has an idea. There's a writer who pays an artist. There's a writer who pays a colorist and a letterer. There's a writer who pays for the printing, and then there's a writer who has to sell the book at the end of the day. Now, the artists obviously get comps and so on, and you hope that the artist is happy with the work, and they're like, yo, I worked for Tom, and look at this thing. But that doesn't always happen. Even that is a 50-50 bet, because most of the time those artists will do something. They might give you a shout out. Hey, Tom's on Kickstarter. Go check it out. But now they're on to the next project. They're on to something for Zenoscope. They're on to something for Coffin Comics. They've moved on. Whereas we're still sitting on that same pile of comics that we still have to sell. So that is the model. That is the mold. Unless somebody is coming in and saying, hey, Aaron, why don't we create something together and we'll do this a little bit differently. But that is, that's not the norm in any capacity. In fact, that's such a huge outlier that we really haven't seen anything like it that has been effective since the Ninja Turtles in that sort of
So
realm.
can I ask a question to just the writers in the room? So you don't have an artist a team member that you would see as like a 50-50 partner in. You have the stories and you hire the best writer for that specific book. And it's
well, in my case, I'm the
writer.
writer and I hire the artists, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I'll even tell you this. I have offered some of my artists a piece of the pie. I've said, look, I know you want to get paid a higher page rate. It's going to be a bit of a struggle for me. What if instead I gave you a piece of ownership of whatever happens? Like we'll write up a contract. We'll create a piece of percentages for sales. If it becomes a TV show or whatever, we'll work that up versus work for hire. And every single time I have offered a piece of ownership, they've said, nah, I'll take the page rate.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand why. I'm not putting them down. I understand why, because that's a guaranteed check. If it's $100 a page, it's a guaranteed check versus $75 a page and some percentage that may happen later. I mean, I totally understand it. I completely get it.
Right. Well, most of the guys I work with do everything. I have another friend who does his own book. He does everything. So most of the artists I know don't even work with writers. They just do it all themselves. And usually I find, not to, maybe this is my own personal ego speaking, I find the execution much more effective if it's done by just one person than as a team sometimes, because it's all coming from one person's head. And sometimes it doesn't translate at all, but sometimes it translates beautifully. I think there's definitely, I mean, you're talking about trying to combine writing with sequential art, and the artist is a sequential storyteller. So basically, I'm translating the script, the VO, into illustrations. And I think sometimes some of that gets lost. And I think we have a lot of writers who think they know best. And most of the time I just give them the paper and pencil. I'm like, knock yourself out. Good luck. And because it's a different language. It is a different language.
But the thing
I
is,
mean,
though,
I've had to. Well, a lot of the stuff what I do professionally is taking corporate lingo for like banks and stuff and translating that into pictures. It's the most abstract stuff you can think of, translating the pictures. But it's also training my brain to translate stories into pictures. And I do not think the model of writer-artist collaboration team is the only model that is effective in American comics. In fact, this is something I've been thinking of a lot. I think there's a lot of different models and a lot of different avenues for making comics that can be explored. And I think the one thing that is wrong with American comics is we are too stuck with the past with what works. I don't think we are good at experimentation, which blows my mind considering if no one's making money
but the thing is,
in independent comics, then you should be experimenting more.
But the thing is, though, what you're talking about is you're excluding people like John Byrne, Dave Sim, Mike Mignola, Walter Simonson. These are guys who, or Frank Miller, right?
Yeah.
These are guys who would draw and illustrate, ink, color. I mean, Byrne was infamous. He did everything on his damn books, down to the lettering, right? So I mean, same thing with Dave Sim. He hired a guy, Gerhard, his partner.
Well, the background artist,
right? But these are guys who did primarily all their work. Jeff Smith, Terry Moore. You know, there's tons of examples. Will Eisner is another one.
Oh yeah,
tons of examples of people who have done exactly what you're saying. So I don't think that's all exclusive. But the thing is, though, is like, you know, going with your case is where would we be without Watchmen, right? Where would Alan Moore be? You know, we would lose all that work if we were just exclusive to just one or the other, right? If it was just all artists writing all stories, you understand? And the thing is you know, Alan is an artist. You understand? But he said he's nowhere near as fast enough to do that type of work. Bill Willingham is an artist, but he got somebody else to draw Fables because he says he couldn't do it. Right?
No, I'm not. I think you misconstrued me. I wasn't actually talking about the exclusive model. I was saying different combinations of, like, you know, you letter your stuff, JD.
Yes.
So like finding writers that can letter. Like, in other words, instead of having somebody just letters, just colors or whatever, that you can combine different things, execute different levels of different, you know, disciplines on different levels. That's what I was talking about more.
Oh, okay, I got you. I'm sorry. So yeah,
like combining different areas of expertise, like somebody, you know, like, I don't know, like there's, you know, like Alex Ross is a painter. I always thought it was interesting when they hired painted, you know, Dan Burrington is a painter. And painting comics, I mean, that was fascinating to watch because nobody ever painted comics. And here's this guy that came in. So there's different disciplines, but I'm sure the way he's actually also, like, because I thought about as a line artist, I'm executing the way you view the page through line art, through line and stuff. But he's executing the way you view the page, follow the eye through light and color and shape. It's a different discipline. So I think the one thing, especially when I see a lot of comics overseas, is a lot of comics that really experiment with different methods of producing the art. Photographs, I did abstract watercolor, really interesting stuff. That should be, sometimes I feel like I wish I'd see that more in American independent comics. Like, let's attempt something we've never done before, because, you know, if we're not making any money, then what have you got to lose? We could produce something beautiful. Yeah. I think sometimes a lot of independent artists get lost in trying to chase the dragon, which is the standard American comic book style and I guess industry, the way things are done. And so
it also depends on your sort of vision for things, because I mean, you know, I love watercolor stuff, but I don't think watercolor would work for the style, you know, comic that I have or anything like that. And you know, we were talking about the writer-artist relationship, and I've found, just talking to other writers, that everybody writes their books differently too. Like mine, when I'm doing panel descriptions, they're very, very descriptive, like time of day, where's the camera, what's the angle at the camera, who's where, what's going on, you know, as much detail as I possibly can. And I know other writers who will literally just write a sentence, and the sentence is, this is what I want to have happen on the page. You just make it, you know, happen. My artists, like, every once in a while, as Tom had said, you know, sometimes, most of the time, they just have it however I have it on the, you know, the panel, and then other times they'll come back and like, hey, you know, you did this, I think this will work better visually if we do it this different way. And you know, if I think it's a better idea, sure, let's do it. And then sometimes they'll try it and I'll be like, nah, I don't think it works as well. And I'll show it to a few other people too, just to, be sure.
Yeah.
But like most of the time, then it's like, okay, then we just go back. But again, that's where that part of the collaboration comes in. But I mean, I understand what you're saying about, experimentation, but I just don't think that experimenting with might not necessarily work for the type of story that people are telling. And I've seen plenty of indie comics that have totally different styles. Like there was a Kickstarter, I can't remember if it was my first or second Kickstarter that was going on simultaneously, where he did a comic on like one of those folding out newspapers. Like as you unfold this little square, that is the comic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds fascinating.
So like,
Yeah.
it was really, really cool. And I had never seen it before, and it works for that. But I don't think that style works for like every type of comic or anything like that.
Oh,
I
no,
think it's
but I
more
mean-
you just have to find what matches what you're going
Right.
for.
Yeah, well, I remember like reading the artist team who did 30 Days a Night. That style would never think for a horror comic, but it just clicked. And I think that was watercolor and some other, I think it was some mixed media.
Mhm.
But it was unique. I never seen anything like it. And I started seeing them. And so I sometimes, because I've been thinking, I see it feels like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like a lot of people are chasing stuff that was created. Like there's a certain, we're not willing to budge from what's been done. And maybe that's part of what's defeating American comics when it comes to manga and other things overseas is,
Well, I don't think
when you're showing the kid the 30th superhero with a cape, they're like, no, I want to go with the guy with the chainsaw on his face. Because I've never seen that.
But I mean, there's
So-
weird stuff like that in regular comics too. I
Yeah.
don't think it's chasing what's already been. I think there's an understanding that the market, that market exists, right? The comic for the 24-page floppy with some covers that appeals to appeals to readers, appeals to artists, appeals to art collectors. That market exists, and so they try and tap into that market to some degree. But there's plenty of people that do comics in different formats, whether like what Darren was talking about, the weird fold out thing. I've seen art of all kinds. I've seen watercolor. I've seen all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's no limit to what comics have been or can be as far as your storytelling or your art. But let's say those success stories in those realms are few and far between versus what we see in sort of the quote unquote normal market. And I'm not saying superhero market. I'm just saying the standard 24 pages. Here's my serialized story, often serialized. And so I think that there's the notion of there's a market that exists. Let me get my toes in it. And if you can get your toes in it and kind of stay there and sink in, then you have the opportunities to kind of do more experimentation, because at that point, now you're kind of in there. You got people that kind of know who you are and know what you're doing. And you have kind of a fan base, hopefully sort of starting to form around you. And then with that, and then you can kind of inform that fan base. Hey guys, we're going to do like this weird watercolor version or this other thing over here. And then you have people that would hopefully, sort of be like, yeah, Tom's doing something different. Let me be a part of that, versus coming into a space with something completely different, like the fold out thing, and sort of trying to create a market for it. Does that make sense? I think that's kind of what we're looking at. And there's definitely a lot of product that is, like you said, yeah, here's another person with a cape. 100% that's a thing. But that doesn't mean that those things can't succeed either. Look at Invincible now. Now, did it take 20 years? Yeah. But, now Invincible is on Amazon with a cartoon show, and there's a live action TV show coming. So, things that are genre and sort of, I don't want to say cliche, but, within what we already understand, derivative, they can still exist and they can still succeed. Brian Pulido is a perfect example. I mean, he's got a character that's now 30 years old that he's clearly making money on. So it's not that there's no money to be made in comics. It's that there are people making money, but it's not that we're not all Brian Pulido, right? That's, and I think that's kind of where it gets lost in the discussion is, yes, you can make money making comics. Yes, you can. But we're all not going to be Brian Pulido.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is as writers, there are experiments that we can do for ourselves. One of the experiments I've done with Oswald is how many different genres can I get them involved in? Can I do a horror story? Can I do a science fiction story? Can I do portal adventures? Can I do a fantasy? So on and so forth. Also, I have this one insane story that I'm still working on where it's Oswald. He's in Dream. He walks into a bar and he finds sitting at a table H.P. Lovecraft, Bram Stoker, Mary Shelley. There's like 2 or 3 other writers. I forget the names, but all of these famous classic writers. And he sits down and he has a beer with them, and each of them tell a story. My job as a writer is to tell a story in the voices of each of those writers. Okay, that's a huge challenge.
Fun. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Right, that's a huge challenge for me as a writer. Right now, I'm gonna try when I actually get him illustrated. I'm gonna try to match each writer or each story with a different artist. Right, but that's like crazy me, like being like, okay, I want to experiment. You understand? And not every writer wants to take that sort of thing on, because let me tell you, like, I got to go back and I got to reread Frankenstein, or I have to go read Lair of the White Worm on top of reading Dracula, and I have to go read these various stories from these various writers to try to pick up on their writing ticks and cues so I can incorporate that into the tales that they're telling. Right, so it's not easy. You understand? So I mean, but it's an experiment. You understand? Yeah. And that's a challenge for me as a writer. But like, not everybody likes to take those sorts of things on. All right, look, we beat this one to death. Tom, it's your turn. What's your question?
Oh, geez. Okay.
That was only the first question.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Well, yeah.
You settled in a little bit more here then.
Yeah, my question is actually a little lighter than JD's. I just, because I've had these kind of moments happen to me in my creating space and time. Is I'm kind of curious if you guys have any weird sort of mental gymnastics or moments in time where, as you were creating something, whether you're creating a story or creating a particular character or whatever, something unique that helped you push that particular thing forward. Because like I've talked sometimes on panels where people talk about where inspiration comes from, right? And I've said that inspiration is everywhere. Like, you could walk to the bank and something could happen and it can inspire you for a character, a story, a thought process, whatever. So I'm just curious if you guys have had any sort of like outside the box experiences that drove a character or a story for you.
Right, yeah, cool. I've had that with 2 of them. Actually, two separate books that I did, where the one that's on Kickstarter right now, while I was writing it not last year but the year before that, I was in a very dark place because there was some relationship stuff going on, and that part of the story, I had written that part years prior, but actually sitting down and writing out the script in detail, like, it gets really, really dark to the point where the editor was just like, man, this is heavy. And I was like, yeah, I was in the wrong kind of headspace to make this, like, to just really lean in on this point. And then when I was writing the 4th book, that one's all about basically, being able to forgive yourself. And again, I was going through some stuff last year, and I didn't even realize when I had written it that basically I was talking about myself in the book. Like, I was the main character for a little bit. And then after I had written it, I was just like, crap. I literally wrote this about myself. But I mean, it works in the story. Like, it works for what the story is. It's just sort of like my life experiences had sort of shaped what was also going on with the character and how the writing was sort of encircling that character. So yeah, so I've had that a couple of times. Not the happiest of instances, but then again, my book series isn't really a happy-go-lucky story. So, I mean, it kind of works.
All right, cool. Sean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so like the entire idea of my first story, or The Fog Within in general, was I was on a run and I was running through some fog, and I thought, what if I went past this fog and I was in the future? And that's how I came up with the entire original plot. And just when I was writing the entire thing, I was just thinking, oh, this would be a cool idea. Oh, this would be a shocking moment, and this and that. And I was like, after I actually wrote it out, I was like, oh crap, that actually happened to me, in my life with being married for a while and having kids, and this happened. So I didn't even realize it when I was writing it. But yeah, I was writing part of my story that's already happened, just in a sci-fi way, not a everyday normal way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. David, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it happens to me all the time. So I'm an elementary school art teacher, and I was walking around. I'd gotten the kids started on their thing. They were doing the thing that they were doing. I'm just walking around talking to the kids, saying, "Hey, try this, Mr. Whalen. I have a cat. Great, whatever the kids are talking about and doing." And as I'm walking around, I look out the window, and the thought just popped in my brain: what if aliens were to attack right now? How would I get these kids out of here? What would I try to do to keep these kids safe? And this happened probably about 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'd say by the time I left school, I had the whole thing plotted out, and probably the first 5 or 6 pages already thumbnailed. So it just happened like super quick and super organic of me thinking how, and then taking some of the kids' personalities and some of the things. If you read that one shot, Will Aliens Do My Homework? If you're a teacher, you'll laugh your butt off, because it is 100% the teaching experience. It just happens to be with aliens attacking, because these kids are just yelling out some things. You're like, where did that come from? Why are you yelling this out? And it all stemmed from just that one experience of walking around and popping in my brain. For something like Latent Lightspeed, about 3 years ago, I have a big family, and we do vacations at Outer Banks. And my little brother, I say little brother, but he's 40. He has a son who's about 6, 7 years old. And he, to say he's a Spitfire is being kind of with the words. He is a kid who is jumping off the walls 24 hours a day. Great kid, funny kid, but just nothing but energy. And I'm sitting by the pool with my brother on one side, my brother-in-law on the other side, who also loves comics. And I look at my brother, I say, that kid's a comic book character. I need to get that kid in a book somewhere. And and my brother-in-law like, yeah, how would you do it? What would you do? Because he really loves comic books also. And so we just started like muddling around this and muddling around that. And I had some other ideas for some sci-fi stuff. And within half an hour, I got up. I'm like, I got to go write this stuff down. And I went up and wrote it all down, came back down and looked at my brother and say, are you all right with me putting this kid in a book? And he goes, yeah, that'd be awesome. And he does that weird look like, you're weird, man. Where did this stuff come from? How did you come up with all this stuff in half an hour? Yeah, but that kind of stuff happens to me all the time. I love it.
All right, cool. Aaron?
I get inspiration from. It's fun. Jay asked me what experimentations I've done in my books. Maybe that's the best way to answer this question. Maybe I can combine the two. I started. Everyone kept telling me to do children's books, and I remember I finally well, what if I could write an adult story in a children's book format? What would that look like? Like not a story for kids, a story for adults. And so I did. It was an Old West book called Dead Luck, and I still I have it formatted. I did get it published. I need to look in to get it published because it's a different physical format. But it was 60 pages, and I did it. But it's fun because I actually got to play with the writing style in the book, because since it was all written like prose and the pictures, I could practice sequential like splash pages with the tempo of the writing because it was all Western. So I wrote it in a sort of prose sort of thing. And so that was one experiment. I wrote 2 kids' books. One of my kids' books was about an alien wildlife photographer, and that one was published. And instead of writing a story, I wrote it like a field guide. Like he actually got out into the planet and photographed all these aliens and basically created these field guides, entire field guide. So the whole book tells a story, and it's more about kids looking at it. And so one page is the what he's photographing, the other page is his notes, and I actually drew in like Scotch tape. So the photos are Scotch taped to the page. It looks like it's handwritten, so it's a field guide. And then, the second one, I wanted to do a wildlife fantasy tour. That's my second kid's book. The girl was a fantasy tour. And I'm like, well, what if I could write a book with those travel brochures? You see the travel brochures, like come here, go there. Well, what if that was a book about a fantasy world? How would we do that? And so I created this little Goblin Lady. That's Miranda, Fantasyland tour guide. And she took this family on a tour of this fantasy land, and each page is a 2-page spread in the kids' book. And the idea was to have less words, more visuals. So instead of going more wordy, I took less words. There's probably like a sentence or two per page. And the idea was I wanted you to look at the pictures. So I'm trying to tell the story through the visual medium alone. And I'd hid like animals. In fact, there's one character is hidden in every page. That's a secret I built into the book. And I don't tell you, you have to figure it out for yourself. Since I told you I'm here, right? So that was an experimentation of basically writing the story as a travel brochure of a Fantasyland written in the story. That was one experiment. Goblins was more of a story experiment, and I know JD's read my Goblins, where I get to about halfway through and I flip everything on its head. And so the idea was to, instead of writing about a character who's out to get revenge, I wrote about a character who made a mistake and somebody's trying to get revenge against him. So it's from his point of view. And it was also about loss and some other things I was going through. And that was my 300-page book that I finished. My new book is me trying to experiment with getting rid of the sequential format. So each page of my Knocked book, which is the one you'll probably show tonight, is a story. Every issue is a complete story. And the idea is it's for kids or middle school, high school, or young adults. They hand it out to anyone and they get a complete story. And there's some lore that interconnects, like a television show. I mean, you can watch any episode of Knight Rider, but there's certain lore that connects through each episode. As more you watch it, the more you pick it up. So same sort of concept. Can you do that in a kid's book? That way, if somebody sees one of my copies on a shelf and say it was like issue 3, because I don't number them, that they'll pick it up. Oh, I don't know what this is. So I'm trying to figure out a way. And I'm also going at like Robert E. Howard or like Lovecraft. Could you write complete short stories in a book? In other words, splitting the comic into multiple issues instead of a graphic novel. Can you write it in the individual issues? So I'm just attempting that. So most of my experimentation comes from what if we can mix formats? What if we can do stuff? The kids book, that was the Didluck, the cowboy one, I showed that to Jim Valentino, and I remember he really liked it, and he sat there and thought, and he said, I wouldn't know how to market this. He's like, but I would buy it if I saw it like that. And so I was like, cool, okay. So I think there are ways to do interesting ideas, and I'm always experimenting with different ways. I try not to make any of my projects are not identical. There's always some shift or some idea that I'm trying to push or do. I got a degree in fine arts, and so that pushed my experimentation of being an artist into the commercial field. And I'd like to experiment with formats that people find commercially viable. Books, but can you mix and can you make new things? I think you can. I think you do some really fascinating things and things people have never seen or done before. And I guess to me, like I said, independent comics, there's not much money to be made. This is the perfect opportunity to do this stuff. And so that's just me, what I personally been doing. So yeah, not even my kids. And I've had, the Miranda one, there's not much of a story here. And I'm like, yeah, there wasn't meant to be much of a story. That wasn't the concept of the book. Some experiments work, some fail. But I feel like if I'm not trying to do something new, at least with the story or the format of the book, I just get bored with it. I don't feel can make anything new. And I want to try to invigorate other artists to take chances, and not just with the art, but with the different things you can ever. And Goblins, you've read Goblins. I have a degree in philosophy. I have a minor in philosophy. Could I talk about philosophy in a comic book? Straight up philosophy, not dumbed down. And so I attempted it and did it because I looked up and researched. And I've never seen a comic book talk about philosophy. And so I thought about fate versus free will. And I had some people read it and they got it, because I was always like, they're gonna get it because I could get kind of abstract, and they got it enough. So yeah, I have stuff that comes from all over the place.
All right, cool. Peter, what are your thoughts?
Not entirely sure where all the ideas come from. I'm kind of glad they do. And my process is like, old school. I have I write it all down. I just make scribbles and notes, and then, like I have one of, this, and I, looks like some serial killer's freaking back wall, right? Where lines going everywhere to different ideas, and not entirely sure where they come from most of the time, and glad they do. And like, it's interesting that, when the first comic book writing gig I got was with Antarctic Press, and it was superhero, and but now, and I did quite well with that, but now everything I write is horror, and horror is the genre that I don't really care much for. I never really read it. Like, I don't watch it. I don't even know if I've ever read a horror book. I've talked to people, and they'd say, "Oh yeah, well, they mentioned some horror movie that they seen, and they'd ask me if I'd seen it. I'd say no. They'd say, "Well, geez, you write it. Why don't you'd think you'd watch it?" And I'm like, "No, not really. I'm more old school superhero that I read. Like, I'm reading Batman, and like Ram V's Batman and stuff like that. And like Sandy Crothers just contacted me there last week. He said Men in Black fame, and he's got an anthology that he's going to be doing called Dark Shores, and he wanted me to write a story for it, and so I said I would. Interestingly enough, the story, and I imagine you guys can all relate to this. The story I originally wrote was not the one that I sent him, because by the time I got to the end, I pulled a George R.R. Martin and had to redo the entire thing, because I got reading through it, and I thought, I wonder if I just changed this part of it. Instead of it being like the Phantom shipyard, I'm going to make it this Marrow ship Leviathan, which is this old dead whale monster with a ship stuck inside of it that people have to go into they got to go into through the tongue of the whale, and they find this Lord of the Rings type door there that they have to go through. And that was never ever part of the story, right? But I just kind of popped in my head, so I had to go back and rewrite the entire thing, and something which is interesting, it flowed better once I did that. I find that if it doesn't tend to flow out, then maybe I'm going in the wrong direction. The stories seem to take on a life of their own, and one of the things that I try to do now is know what the ending is before I really start the beginning, because I've had that happen where you want to do a 4-issue arc, and it turns out to be 8, and it should only be 4. So you have to, or you're trying to figure out how to, to write, 8 comics in 4 issues, right? And so now I know, mostly when I do arcs now, I know how it's going to end, and then I work backwards, and I try to keep like the core things, that I want in the story to actually be in the story. There's always room for change. Like I said, with the story that I wrote for that anthology that I just sent away yesterday, was, the artist is gonna have a fun time with it. But, I wrote the entire thing and turned around. Like I said, I got an idea changed, and then I had to rewrite it again. But I enjoy doing it. When it feels like work, I tend not to like it very much. But I knew I was going in the right direction, because it didn't feel like work, and the time just kind of, and I couldn't wait to get back to it to revise and and edit and all that stuff. So I know when that's happening, that I'm going in the right direction, and I know that when I send it to the artist, and they're not sending me back a lot of question marks and what are you talking about, and then I also know that I'm going in the right direction.
All right, cool.
Just something called The Muse, didn't there? Like Stephen Pressfield, I think this guy's name, and he wrote a book called The Art of Creativity or something, and he said if you go and write or draw or do anything the same time every day, whether you want to do it or not, that you're going to tap into some universal force or something, and I think I think there's something to that.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. For some reason, for me, it's 3 a.m. But yeah, I think for me it was the first Oswald story I ever wrote. It's like I took it as a challenge. This whole story, Daphne hates hearing it because I blame her for it. We were walking and we just saw this patch of flowers, and one of them was chewed up, and I was like, oh, it looks like some fairy's gonna be mad. Some troll chewed up her patch, and she looked at me and she was like, that's ridiculous. And I was like, no, it's not. That's a good story. And that was the first Oswald story I ever wrote. It's called The Park Avenue Wall War. And then it just blossomed from there, right? It just, just spun out from there. So yeah, it definitely happens for me all the time. So Tom, ask your own question.
Yeah, it's happened a bunch of times for me in various stages of my life, which have been interesting. Some of it fun, some of it not so fun. But one of the keys was just like I talked about, inspiration is everywhere. So I remember I do watch a lot of stuff on just like space and UFOs and just whatever, all that kind of nonsense. And for whatever reason, I was watching some of these shows, and they kept saying Ursa Major and Minor, like back and forth. Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor. And in my brain just started processing what that meant: little bear, big bear, whatever. And I was like, yeah, but within the comic sense, within the story sense, I knew that there's already been like Ursa Major in other places, but like, what would we do with Ursa Minor? What would the little bear mean? And so that's where suddenly I was developing this weird werebear story with this little blonde girl who turned into a giant, super giant werebear monster. So that was a really simple one. And then, a number of years ago, I wanted to finally do a kaiju book because I'm a huge Godzilla fan. And this would have been like, I don't know, 6 years or so into my career. And I've never did anything with kaiju before. And I just started kind of tinkering with it, but I didn't know what the framework of it was. It's like, yeah, we can just write a movie where the monsters come and run into each other. But is there a framework that I could put around this to make it mean a little bit more? And at the time I was going through a really bad time with my divorce, and it was just horrendous. And so I was also at that time doing research on things like the 5 stages of grief and, denial and anger and bargaining and all that kind of stuff. And so as I was doing that, I was writing the kaiju book at the same time. And I started to realize that I could create a world and stories that took us through essentially the 5 stages of grief. So it would be sort of cathartic internally, but it would also be sort of like the 5 stages of grief for the entire planet as the planet is destroyed, by the monsters with these characters. How do they respond to all of these things? And I took it to my editor, Kerry Castor. I was like, you like monster stuff. Like you're like me, you like Godzilla stuff. This is my thought. What do you think? And she was like, that's really cool. And so we actually tag teamed the book. And so it ended up being a 40-page book where she wrote one story that we just started at the beginning. So it's denial. She wrote a story, I wrote a story, and it was about the entire world coming apart, but in different locations. So we got completely different experiences from the human characters that all had to start dealing with their denial. And then of course we'll move on to anger in the next story and see how all these characters evolve through, all the way through to acceptance that essentially the world is gone, guys. Because that's what happens in kaiju movies. It's generally no go by the end. So I've had a lot of those types of odds and ends of things happen in my life, and it's like whenever I do these not these panels, but even when I do panels at Comic Cons, and people invariably ask me, where do you get the inspiration for this stuff? And I'm like, man, it can come from anywhere at any time. You people in the audience might pick up on something that we say and go racing out to your car and start writing down in a notebook. Who knows? Because stories are endless. There's no limitation. So anywhere, anytime, that's the story and that's the inspiration too. So you guys had good answers. I like that. and I guess we lost JD.
I think
I
he's
know
probably
he's had
going
some
to Daphne's computer.
Okay, he's going to switch over. Yeah,
I would
last
assume
week
it's
he had
usually
some
what he
internet
does.
problems too, but he got it figured out. And I think we're just about to show y'all's campaigns here. Do we have how many
So,
people have
Tom,
campaigns? I see 3 back
Tom,
here.
I'm going to need you to tell me where to get this kaiju book of yours, if you can.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So, I'm literally wearing a
BigDogInk.com.
Godzilla shirt.
Let's just do it. Let's just chill for a minute, guys. If you guys want Big Dog Ink books, most of what we do starts on Kickstarter, rolls through our web store, eBay, Comic Cons, etc. We are now being published by Antarctic Press. They're actually reprinting all of our old books now. Starting with Critter. Well, I shouldn't say all of them, but they're reprinting Critter right now, which is actually in stores. But if you guys want back issues or trade paperbacks or any of that kind of stuff, BigDogInk.com is you just go right to our web store. And like I was saying earlier, we won't have a link to show you guys anything tonight, but we'll be launching a crowdfunding Kickstarter for Critter number 23 this Saturday. So that's where you can get all of my stuff. And then I'm going to be at a ton of conventions starting in May too. So now JD's back. So we'll talk about all that stuff towards the end.
Sorry about that, guys. My computer's being temperamental.
No worries.
Should I start my answer over?
I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm pulling up Peter's something. Peter, what do we got here, man? You're in previews. Talk to me.
Oh, that's in May. In the May previews, I Delivers from Evil 1 premieres, and it's drawn by Mattia Doghini, and they were generous enough to put us in the spotlight for that month. And then I have another one, Harvest of Horrors 3, that also made the spotlight of the month for the month of May, and that's with Caliber. The Deliver Us from Evil title is coming out monthly starting in May. There's previews linked for issue 2. Issue 1, it's where I think we're past the ordering part for that now. And then in Halloween, I have another title coming out. It's going to be a monthly title called Mud Madness, Tales of the Great War. But it's not just going to be horror stories from World War I, but it's going to be more of a weird world or weird war type thing. The first 5 issues are already complete, and they're basically World War I horror stories with, it's mostly World War I, history with a supernatural twist to it, and the Deliver Us from Evil story basically is, it's to my homage to X-Files and John Constantine and all the stuff like that. It's a big mixture of those.
All right, cool. And both of these are available in the current previews?
The Harvest of Horrors is it would have been, those are the comics that Harvest of Horrors comes out in May. It's already available on Amazon and in like Barnes and Nobles and Walmart, places like that. It comes out to the stores, comic book stores, in May, and then Deliver Us from Evil 1 comes out to the comic book stores in May. And so, but like, I think they're past the deadline now to order those. So I think that like number 2 comes out in June. So I think now comic book stores are placing orders for June comics.
All right, cool. Like I said,
I don't know how that works. I just write.
I picked up. Yeah, I got you. I picked up the latest previews and I saw your name in it. And I know one of your books is in there.
If those are trade paperbacks, they are probably available for back order. Generally, a company will keep the previous issues open so that if people missed it, they can back order.
Well, the Caliber ones are, you can get Harvest of Horrors 1-3 through Caliber, and you can get the Mississippi Zombie ones through Caliber. They're all available on Amazon too. But the Deliver Us from Evil title and the Mud Madness titles, those are there's the only way you're going to get those. You got to order them through stores, right? You know, and
Oh, okay.
because
Gotcha.
there is no back issues to get,
Right.
Right. All right. Cool.
or at least not
Well,
yet.
now,
There isn't.
now we got a fog going on.
Yeah.
Sean, do you want me to play this video?
You can. It's semi-basic.
All right. Cool. Just give me a second. I just want to check something. Any day now. Cool, nice and short. I like it.
Thank you. Took me about 5 hours to do.
Yeah, that's how that will work. I know how
That's
to
how it always goes.
Oh yeah. So basically, the idea of the fog within in the first issue was there's a catastrophic event in the present. There's an infection from this event. The government doesn't know what's going on. They wall in this town of Brooks, and they had to fend for themselves. This regime comes into place, and really about 3 days after the event happens and some of this government stuff starts to unfold, a hunter is on a run, and he runs through this fog and then ends up 26 years in the future where this regime of government is taking over, taking all the resources from the civilians. There's rebels involved trying to take it back to the people. And there's a prophecy involved that happened during the infection and the chaos. And they know that this savior is coming from this fog. So the rebels are ready to save him at the beginning. And he doesn't know what's going on. They think he does. And he's learning about his ability. And you have some really cool elite rebel type characters that definitely know who they are. And so there's a lot of Hunter learning about himself, and then also rebels that know what they're doing and fighting the regime of schism is what they're called.
Did you say
so? Number
Schism?
2, huh? Schism.
Oh, Schism.
Yeah, a little better name than So there's also these soldiers that work for Schism. They're called the Swarm. It's kind of like a hive mind type soldier group, and the elite rebels, they're Alpha, Zeta, Epsilon. They all have code names. They have, of course, their best qualities that they bring to the table. Can take out these guys pretty easily. In this issue, with I show in cover B and cover C, there's these monsters that come into play that they can't take on so easily. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of like a 90s nostalgic kind of action-packed stories. I've been saying the elevator pitch is it's like Bad Batch or G.I. Joe meets X-Men in the apocalypse with a time-traveling fog. It's been my elevator pitch.
Nice. So this is issue 2 of how many issues?
So right now, the first arc is what I'm focusing on. So it'll be 4 issues for the first arc. I've already written out completely those. And I would like to get to the entire story, which is going to be 12 issues. But right now, since I'm just getting started, I'm trying to make sure I have small goals and then reach the large goals.
All right, cool, nice.
Yep.
Now, what type of schedule are you looking at? You looking at every quarter releasing a book, every twice a year, that sort of thing? What are you looking at?
Yeah, so last year for the first issue, because I wrote it last year, I found my team, we did the Kickstarter, and I was just learning day by day. It took me pretty much the entire year. It was really 9 months, and then I got the book out and sent it to everybody in December. So now that I know more of an idea of what actually to do and all the steps involved, I'm trying to do at least 2 books a year. So right now, this one's almost completely done. I have last couple of colored pages and lettered pages to finish. By the time the Kickstarter is over, I'll be going to print and then sending it out to everybody. And my plan is for issue 3 to come out around August, September on Kickstarter and be almost completely done by the time I go to Kickstarter again. So then next year I'll finish the 4th issue at the beginning of the year, and then hopefully have the trade by the end of the or mid year next year, so that I can continue on with that.
All right, cool. Oh,
Who's
you
the
got
artist
another
on
12.
that second cover?
So the second cover is Gilliard. Is it Gilliard Goulart? Something like that. It's on there.
That one
So
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
Gilliard Goulart. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
done some stuff for Travis Gibbs, and I
see the
saw his
name.
stuff, and I just had to use him.
Yeah, that's cool. I really like
Thank
that
you.
one. That stood right out.
Yeah, that's the monster. Funny thing with that is I was going between 2 covers at the end right before I was going to go live, and I had all these podcasts set up. So I had to be ready, but I also wanted a finished product. So I had 2 different artists doing 2 different covers that could work for issue 2 or 3. And he finished that. I didn't think it'd be done, but he finished. He did the pencils and the inks like 2 days before I was going live, and I had a colorist that works for Mad Cave do the colors, and the colors did it in 1 day. So it was done before the one I thought was going to be done. So I was like, I have to put it on here now, and it gives me vibes of like Hellboy or the inspiration for what they call is the pets. There's 2 of those guys. It's more like a Pit and Hulk kind of mix, but also like a fog power vibe as well.
So does the guy breathe fog? Does that his power breathing the fog? Like does he exhale it out? Like breathe it out?
Yeah, exactly. It's internal for him. So the fog, there's a couple of guys with fog type abilities. I don't really go into detail of how he uses it, but it is internal with him. I would say that.
You know, it's funny. It reminds me of one of my favorite scenes from that old Transformer animated movie. Well, one of them gets shot like in a spaceship, and then like all this fog of steam comes out of his mouth as he dies. The way they drew it was really cool. I don't remember. Maybe I'm aging myself here, and but yeah, when I saw it, I was like, you reminded me of that scene. And I mean, of course, as a kid seeing that, you're like, I'm like, what the hell?
Right. That's actually was that
Jazz?
I think it was the Prowl. I think it was like there was one. There was like Jazz and then there was Prowl. That was like the cop car. I think it was him. He turned around in his chair and got shot. Then all the smoke, and that's what it reminded me of. And I always thought that was a cool scene in the movie.
Yeah. All right. So Sean, I mean, you got another 12 days to go. You 1,600, so you're 64% there. I mean, you got a little work to do, but I think you can make it. So.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. It's looking good, man. Very nice.
Appreciate it.
Very nice. All right, cool. All right, let's hold on. All right. Now we're gonna go with the Knocked.
Oh,
so what do we got here?
This is, I guess, the second story of Knocked, and he's basically in this story. He ends up trying to kill a pumpkin. I think if you go down, you can see like one of the first pages. You can click on those pages and they come up. That's him falling off the cliff, the embarrassing barbarian moment. But yeah, he's trying to hunt this pumpkin, and he kills it. And this dog comes out and takes his axe and his pumpkin. He's like, "What the hell?" And goes chasing off, and that's when he comes across starts tracking it down, and then I think I put the 2-page spread where he comes across a Jekyll and Hyde. So Jekyll and Hyde, what I did is I took Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and made a 2-headed monster. One side's Hyde, one side's Jekyll. And so he just ends up getting his food back. But I just, in the book, he kills it, and as she's about to get to kill, this dog comes out of nowhere, and she has a pink bow in her hair. Her name is Trixie, and grabs this meal and takes off. And it's like, what the hell? So I'm trying to do more like pulp type stories, just like little incidents. My first story of Knocked was he encounters a talking skull who's trying to roll its way to a graveyard to get together with his long lost love. And he helps the skull get to the graveyard in exchange for food, but it doesn't go the way he wants. That's the first story. That's that one. That's the one where he's fighting zombies. That's, I think, he's in the forest of like soul and blood, or like trees that devour souls. And that's when he's like eating one of the branches and there's blood coming out and souls coming out. And anybody who played Gauntlet probably knows that reference. So he's, taking the little talking skull to the graveyard, and he ends up, I don't want to give away too much of the story, but he ends up kind of getting caught up in a love story and tries to help his way out, but it doesn't work out. It's very heavily inspired by like, Conan and stuff. I like barbarians. I like Halloween. So I mixed Halloween with barbarians. And then that's the Miranda book I told you about, and the Roscoe, my Godlings. The Miranda one is done in full. So those are like huge full page spreads of my kid's book, and each page is its own place on the tour. And so cool. That's one, and then the other one, Roscoe's the one I get stopped with all the time. That's the one. So each page that's him as a photograph, and then do the page before it, that's his actual notes. So the whole book is set up like notes or whatever. And these two were published by Action Lab, which was, if everybody knows Action Lab, that was that story. But I still have them. I like to do more with this character. Yeah.
So did they actually print it?
Yeah, they printed it, but I can't get a hold of them, so I don't know how to get there's a few thousand copies of my book sitting at Diamond, I guess, but I don't know how to get in contact with Diamond to get the books to me. So I've been cut off. So I got to figure out a way to reprint the book. Which is kind of a bummer.
Have you spoken to Action Lab about it?
They won't return my emails. The emails I sent or try to connect, they say it doesn't exist anymore. So they've completely cut it off. Yeah, that's that's the 300-page.
But you have all the files for the book, right?
Oh yeah, it's all mine.
Yeah, just take it to crowdfunding.
Yeah. Oh, I thought about doing that. This is my first Kickstarter will be for this book, my Goblins book. Which I'm starting out with a 300-page graphic novel. So give me a prop there. I split it into 12 issues. I'm also going to offer the issues, so you can either buy the issues or the graphic novel. And I have some prints that I'm doing. That has some people do some artwork for prints. I'm not doing alternate covers just because the books are done or whatever. So I'm putting prints in instead of the alternate covers and stuff. And that was the one that's the one that has philosophy in it and stuff, fate versus free will and stuff like that. And so yeah, so and then you can buy all the individual issues for that if you want to try it out on my site too, all 12 of them, or you can just buy the whole thing. It was meant to be one huge book, but I split it into issues just so I can actually just start to disseminate it into the world. So it wasn't like the thing with the issues is the covers are only on the issues. I don't reprint the covers in the book. So if you want the 12 covers, you have to buy the issues. So that's that. So I kind of make it unique to that. Like, if you want the covers, buy the issues. If you don't care about the covers, just want the story, buy the book. It costs about $60 to buy the whole 12 issue series, the five a piece, or $40 for the book. So the graphic novel is $40. That seemed to be the sweet spot that I've seen graphic novels go for. So
cool.
Yeah.
Now,
go ahead.
So you got Knock 2 out now. How long ago did you release Knock 2?
Knock 2 was released. I just printed it. I think the middle of last month. I only print 25 copies.
Oh, okay.
So I just 25, and I throw them in if I need more. It costs about $100 through Comics Wellspring. So I just print 25 and throw them in. So people want to order them, they can in any order. I am coming the halfway mark through the third issue where he faces vampires and ghost dogs. And then his 4th issue, I think he's going to meet his main nemesis, which is basically a headless horseman variant, who basically his little army of people, he doesn't like heads, so he goes around and chops off people's heads and replaces it with pumpkins because he thinks it looks better. So I'm taking very Halloween tropes and trying to flip them around on their head and stuff. Noct himself has a history, and I have some stories going into a little more history of who he is and a little bit where he came from. But I always liked Robert E. Howard stories where it was just a straightforward tale of Conan. I mean, all you need to know he was a barbarian. You didn't know anything else. And there was just something cool. I kind of miss stories like that. The old Judge Dredd used to do that. I mean, you'd read any Judge Dredd story, as long as you knew he was a judge and what he did, so I don't know. So I'm trying to maybe bring that back a little ways in this story. Noct stands for nocturnal. That was where I got that name from. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Listen, it looks. I like it. It looks good.
Oh, thanks. And when I put it,
listen.
Go ahead.
Whenever you want to do that Kickstarter, let me know.
Yeah. I'm slowly working on it and then working on my book and stuff too. So, and when I get the 4 issues, I'll put it in a graphic novel just for you, JD.
Yes, because I don't like.
You don't like issues, I know.
Yeah. All right, Dennis, you want me to play this video?
I wouldn't. I mean, it's like 8 minutes long. So I mean, if you really want to watch that whole thing, I go into like a real goofy way with these. So each of the Kickstarters I do, the videos are also kind of connected. It's got like a very Lon Chaney, black and white sort of vibe, where the first Kickstarter I did, I'm just wandering through the woods at night, and then the audience I just happened to meet in the woods. The second one, I'm being chained to a chair in my basement. The third one, I wake up in the woods and I'm covered in blood and there's like a severed hand next to me. So like, it's just this ongoing little goofy story that, allows me to talk about the Kickstarter. So, I mean, if you want to watch it, we can, but it's much longer.
I don't want to go that far into it.
No, don't worry about it.
We'll maybe another time.
No worry.
But you're at 11.5. You did great. You passed your goal, so you're doing great. 185 backers, fantastic.
Thank you.
Let's scroll through this. So walk us through this. What do we have?
So, like in the graphic novel series anyways, I best sum it up as it's the story of the world's first werewolf. It's a little bit of horror, a little mythology, a little adventure, a little history. The first book in the series was the origin story, sort of sets everything up. And then each book in the series that follows that goes into different regional mythologies and monsters and folklore and gods and all that stuff. And so the second book went into ancient Arabic mythology, opened the world up to magic and that sort of thing. And this book, the third one, I best describe as H.P. Lovecraft meets Gilgamesh. And it's the same character through each of the books. It's always Solomon. It's just he's sort of going on this journey, or Odyssey, if you will. So yeah, the first book was 72 pages. Second one was 72. This one's 96. So they keep creeping up there in terms of the length of each of these books. But yeah, so that's the dime store tour, I suppose, of the books in general. But I am especially excited about this one. And as I said, it gets pretty dark.
Oh, is this the one that's really dark?
Yeah, this is the one that's really dark.
Gotcha.
When one of the funnier things that I had happened to me on this book series, or at least this book anyways, is reading what my editor, as she leaves notes as she reads through it. Mm-hmm. And so she puts at one point, she goes, "Hey, you're not going to do this thing, right?" And I'm like, scroll. She goes, okay. Like, you did it. Okay. You're not going to do it again though, right? Scroll. Okay. But like, you're done now, right? Scroll. I hate you. I hate everything. I hate you. And she just left me a note at the end that said, I hate it. I love it. I hate you more. And I said, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So
nice.
Left you a note, official restraining order.
Yeah. So I put the first, I believe it's 20 pages of this book right up here. So
cool. So this is the third issue. How many more issues do you see going in the series?
So the series is going to be 15 books. I haven't mapped out all the way to the last page of the last book.
Nice.
So there are 3 5-book arcs in total.
Cool.
And yeah,
so,
like I said, each book goes into different regions, time periods, stuff like that. So the next book which is already written. That one's set in ancient Egypt. Then we go to Greece, and then we go over to Asia. I want to do like a journey to the West, and then from there it keeps going.
Okay. Very nice. Are you going to do?
Sorry?
He's asking, are they going to go into space?
Oh no, no! Wasn't going to have him go into space. I mean, maybe, I don't know. That doesn't really. I'm trying to keep it a little more grounded to touch. But so the series will eventually go into slightly like future, not like flying cars future, but like just like 20, 30 years beyond now. Although by the time the books get there, it'll probably be present day, because it takes about a year to a year and a half for each of these books to come out. So.
Gotcha. So you get the entire book done before you launch?
As much of it as I can. So this is the first time where the book wasn't entirely finished. The art is all the way done. The coloring is 2/3 done, and then the lettering is pretty much right where the coloring is. So
Gotcha.
it'll be done. I just got an update from the colorist. It'll probably be done in less than 6 weeks, which is fine, because if anyone's done a Kickstarter, you know how it's like pulling teeth to get people to answer their surveys. So I can't print the books without people answering their surveys, because I don't know, A, what covers they want, or B, there's a thank you page where they get their names put in the book, and I kind of need to know what their names are so I can put it in the book. So it's one of those things where I'm waiting on people. So it kind of works out, because I have to wait anyways.
Gotcha. All right, nice.
Yeah.
Well, you got another 12 hours.
Yep.
So people, jump on it now. You know,
I gotta say too, since I saw him at Baltimore, I read both the first two, and they were really good. Actually, I didn't know you were here today, and I actually have your book right here in front of me.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
There you go.
Yep.
I used to make this joke when I first started doing conventions, and then my friend told me not to. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this show, I'm very self-deprecating. And one of the things I used to say was, yes, the books are beautiful, so that way, even if my writing stinks, that they're still nice to look at. To which my friend would immediately say, shut up. Your writing's not bad, so stop putting that in people's heads.
Dennis,
like, okay,
this is the ego show. You got to turn on your ego switch.
I know.
Yes.
Well, that's why I said it's the self-deprecating part. I've gotten better. Like I know the books are good now. Like I've always known they're good, but like now I don't sort of do the self-deprecating stuff. My day job also helps with that, because I'm a consultant, and what they say is like, no, you have to like always be confident, even if you don't know what you're doing. So it's like, okay. So now I do that a lot better.
I read a quote the other day, and it was like Bruce Lee. I don't remember where the quote was, but don't make fun of yourself, because your brain starts to believe it, even if like self-deprecating, you're making jokes and all that kind of stuff.
Fair.
It starts to your soul starts to believe it, even if you're kidding or not. And I kind of took that to heart, because I am also very self-deprecating, and I kind of stopped doing it a little bit, because you know, I don't have my back. Who will?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Listen, very nice. Like I said, another 11 hours ago, 185 backers. You're good. You know?
Yeah.
Nice.
This one jumped out to the biggest as well. And then I finally got that elusive Project We Love tag that I could not get on the first two. So I was very happy with this one.
All right. Very nice. Very nice. All right, cool.
Thank you.
Let me see. I think I'm going to pop mine up real quick. Magi's Grace. I didn't skip over anybody, did I?
Did David have one?
I was gonna say,
I don't have a Kickstarter, but if you want to go to my website, I'd love to show that off.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. Did you put it in the private?
I did, yes.
All right. That's what I missed. Okay. No.
That's okay. He does it to me all the time.
Yeah, I do. I straight up forgot Aaron tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, do me a favor. Put it in the private chat again. Because when I logged on, I logged back in, and it deleted everything in the private chat for me.
You got it.
When it does that. All right. So anyway, this is Magi's Grace. Like another 18 days ago, we're already funded. This is what happens when cryptids meet the supernatural. So we have vampires invading Ismith. So it's fish people being invaded by vampires, and Magi, who's a gun-toting monster hunter, along with his partner Grace, who's a sword-wielding sorceress, they get brought in to deal with this situation. So there you go. A lot of sexy covers, a lot of fun, a lot of action. There's even a review for it. So if you want, you can scroll down a little bit. There's a link. Click on that link. It'll give you a review. And that'll give you an idea of whether or not this is for you. So there you go.
The review just says, buy this book. All right.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. You know, so that always helps. All right. Boom. All right. Okay. All right. So Dennis, what do we got here?
There it is.
David,
Correct
excuse me.
That's okay. CorrectHanahComics.com. That's our latest 136-page graphic novel, Latent Lightspeed. It is set in the future Earth, and I taking contemporary things and ideas that happened. It was about 25 years after a plague had decimated the solar system. And there are scientists working on cloning technology to be able to help rebuild the population. And in other planets in the solar system, they didn't fare as well. There's a planet of aliens that is dying, and a general from that planet is essentially kidnapping scientists and trying to get them to use their cloning technology to be able to rebuild their species. Latent Lightspeed is it starts off as an 84-year-old scientist with a lot of physical and emotional problems, and his daughter, Galaxy Lightspeed. They end up being chased and hunted down by this general and his son. Latent Lightspeed has a heart attack in the middle of it, and Galaxy Lightspeed downloads his brain into a 9-year-old clone of himself. So it is an 84-year-old man and the clone of a 9-year-old boy, and them still being chased by these two aliens who are trying to get them to use their technology to rebuild their species. It is everything you want from sci-fi, action, adventure, aliens, spaceships, all that great stuff. I can't be happier with the way it turned out. I'm really proud of it. And like I said, about 3 years of kind of toiling with the story and getting it to where I'm really making sure I'm honing in on the themes, which are is family and how we deal with, as a species, how we deal with getting older, and how sometimes as human beings we don't really deal with it very well. With lots of the Botox and the face lifts and the people in their 70s dressing like they're in their 20s and all that stuff. So it kind of deals with those kind of themes of growing old gracefully and understanding that with age comes wisdom. And just because you have wrinkles doesn't mean that your worth is diminished in any way. In fact, those wrinkles all represent knowledge that you've gained. So it really deals with those kind of themes. The Offspring, that's omnibus number 2, which collects issues 13 through 25. And I actually just finished most of the pencils. I have a couple little details that I put in. Most of the pencils of issue 26 today. So I'm going to start inking issue 26 and getting 26 starts season 3 of The Offspring. So issues 1 through 12 are collected in a trade omnibus. Issues 13 through 25 are collected in a trade omnibus, seasons 1 and 2. And that's a story of 4 kids who come to find out that they are the catalysts for the universe. And when we meet them, they are at their 20-somethings, and they are at their lowest point ever. They have, in this lifetime that they are experiencing right now, have grown up in very abusive homes. Mentally and physically abusive homes. And when we meet them, they're at their lowest point. One is in prison. One Vince just tries to commit suicide. Will is kind of hiding out in the place that he feels the safest. And it's really their exploration of how they see themselves, how they see the world as not a very safe place. To be the tagline is, "Where's your safe place?" for The Offspring. And they start to develop not only a friendship for each other, for these 3 kids that don't trust each other at all, but they start to see each other as family. As we get into season 2, there's a 4th member of our 3-member group that kind of throws a wrench in the works. They go to save their friend Megan, who was kind of ripped from the timeline. And they find out where and how she was ripped from the timeline in the first time travel story in the American Civil War. And now, as we're getting into season 3, they find themselves being thrust further and further back into the past. Right now, it's the issue 26 that I'm working on. They find themselves on the Lusitania in World War I. And if you know anything about World War I history, the Lusitania has maybe not the greatest ending in the world to its one of its voyages, to its last voyage. But they continue through 26 through the next season 3, just being thrust back and back and back into time. There is a method to the madness of why they're being thrust back in time further and further and further. And I'll get to that as I go. I don't want to give too much away.
All right, cool. Now you don't do crowdfunders, so I mean, how are you? Obviously, you're selling on your website, but are you selling it on any other platforms like Amazon or something?
Yeah, Amazon. I do most of my stuff through Amazon and cons. I'm also on Global Comics. You can find digital on most of my books on globalcomics.com also. I do pretty good traffic through Amazon and on the conventions trail that I do up here in upstate New York where I am. I do have some books in local comic book shops that sell well also. But really, it's just about peddling the wares online to be able to get people to the website, which will take them to Amazon.
Gotcha. Now, if you click on these links, they'll take you to Amazon.
They'll take you right to Amazon. Yep.
All right. Cool. Now,
if you scroll down a little bit, you can see all the individual trades of the Offspring and the Omnibus 1. So 6 individual trades, and that's collecting both all seasons 1 and 2, and then Omnibus 2 right there, or Omnibus 1 that collects season 1. Excuse me.
Now, the printing on the books, is this something like, are you selling it on Amazon and you're fulfilling, or are they fulfilling it for you, like through Lightning Source?
A little bit of both. So the Amazon, if you order from Amazon, they fulfill the order. Yeah, so it really kind of works out where I don't need to have 1,000 books in a box somewhere in my basement. Right. When I know that I'm going to a con or know that I want to put some books into a store, I travel from upstate New York to Ohio to North Carolina fairly frequently in my daily life. So I will try to get books in stores as much as I possibly can. Which is difficult from time to time, but also fun because I get a lot of traffic on my website and traffic on all my social medias through the people that find me in those places. But for the most part, I print books kind of for myself on demand as much as I need. I'll print 10 to 25, sometimes a little bit more than that, depending on what I need them for, fairly cheaply through Amazon.
Okay, cool. Nice.
It's not bad. It works out for me. And I hope to continue to grow to where maybe I will need 100, 500 books printed in my basement and I can just start getting them out to people. But right now it works well for me and what I need to do.
All right, cool. Now, how long have you been doing this?
Let's see. So I would say issue 1 of The Offspring came out about 6 years ago.
Oh, okay.
7 years ago. So I've been toiling around for a while, and The Offspring is going to be 50 issues. And like I said, I'm just working on issue 26 right now. But I plan to get out at least 5. I try to get out at least 5 to 6 books a year.
Right. Nice. Yeah, it's a good schedule. Nice.
It's not bad. It works out pretty well. I can get an issue of The Offspring fully done, colored, lettered, ready to go. And on a good, if there's nothing else going on, 2 months, sometimes 3 months, depending on if it's holiday time or summer where I'm taking vacations with my families or things like that. But I can usually get out a book within 2 months.
All right. Cool. Very nice. All right. Gentlemen. So I got another question for you guys. Now I can ask you C. Michaels. C. Michael Lanning was supposed to, he's not feeling well. So he called out sick today, some bitch. But he gave me a question. I read it to you guys earlier. I'm not gonna ask this question. But so I got my own damn question. No,
He's just
I'll ask
bringing
you
it
a
up. So, like, I just wanted to see Michael's question to tell you I'm not going to ask his question.
pretty much, yeah. He can come on his damn self and ask it himself. That's how I feel about it. Like, all right. So no, there's always other opportunities. He'll be back one day. So my question is, what is the one thing you're looking forward to achieving in comics? You know, what is that thing that you want to achieve? You know, beyond everything else, what's that one crazy thing you want to achieve? So, Sean, what are your thoughts? What are you looking to achieve?
I mean, right now my crazy thing is getting to issue 12 because I know that's a huge feat for a new writer.
Yeah.
So,
and that's fair. That's good. That's a good one. I like that.
now once I get past that, then I'll have other aspirations. But get through that first one, then move on to the next.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that's cool. David, what are you looking to achieve?
Yeah, same thing as Sean. I mean, I just put out a 135-page graphic novel. So now it's really focusing on issue 26 and trying to get the small stepping stones done for that issue, with always the bigger picture in mind of trying to get season 3 done, then season 4, and getting to issue 50. It's always, the plan to get it out to the public as much as I possibly can in the most trying to find creative ways. As somebody who understands that there are a million of me, there's 6 of us sitting here, 6 other people that are just like me sitting here on the panel, and trying to find the most creative ways to be able to get my book out to where people are interested in reading it, and hoping that it's unique or interesting enough for people to go, oh yeah, I'll check that out, and then keep them wanting to check it out by doing those fun stories. I know that as an indie creator, people hearing sometimes, oh, I'm going to do 50 issues of this book is a little daunting for people who do read indie comics, because they're like, oh, you're not going to get sometimes they don't get the 3 issues. So what I did was I have 6 of them out right now, 24-page one-shots that are different genres, different characters, has nothing to do with my 50-issue ongoing series, The Offspring. But I try to see that as like a bridge to be able to see my work and see my style, or, whether it's art or writing, and see if they like it enough to be able to jump on board for The Offspring. And there have been some times where people will contact me and say, hey, I read The Sock Hop Killer, which is one of my horror one-shots. I really liked it. I'm going to pick up the first trade of The Offspring and hope that they continue for the ride for the next trades. So really my hope is to continue to build my brand here of the Big Blue Left Hand, and hope that people continue to like reading in them as much as I like creating them.
Gotcha. So you're left-handed?
I'm a southpaw, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough.
No, he's correct-handed.
Correct-handed. There's right-handed and correct-handed.
Okay, if you say so.
A typical right-handed.
He's got a sign and everything, JD. It's right there.
Typical righty response.
You say so.
Try living in our left-handed world for one day. You'd fall apart crying on the floor.
Listen, I watch MMA, so always open to that right leg kick. That's all I can say. Right to the dome. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
It's funny. I finishing Goblins was one of my big goals, and that's done. I think now I'm always shifting goals. I like Knocked was less more on story for me. It just I wanted to draw what I wanted to draw. I like drawing Halloween. I draw a Halloween picture every year for Halloween, and I like Barbarians, so I just wanted to draw what I wanted to draw. But I guess just kind of developing. I plan to just keep going with him for the foreseeable future. I might do other projects in between, but I always like Usagi Yojimbo and how certain creators could just take one character and just that's all they do. They just got like JD does Oswald. I mean, there's something kind of cool about that. Like you're associated or connected, you know, with that. So Nocta, that gets my take at like just doing this character in various stories and building upon him and just sticking with that for now. I guess making my own little publishing house, which I'm slowly doing over time with all my books, and then draw the ultimate story when Noct slays Oswald. Because I mean, that would be the ultimate story.
That's all right. I would have a definite. You can feel free to do that one. I have a definitive response.
Definitive response, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I have the artist, and I have the artist to knock it out too.
To knock it out, Gray. He's gonna beat me to it. Erase it. Who can get the story out of who kills who first in the story?
Well, who kills who more spectacularly?
That's true. I think your character probably make mine explode with a wave of a hand or something.
So, all right, cool, fair enough. Peter, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I don't really have any goals. Never really thought I'd get this far to begin with, right? And whenever I think of quitting, something always like last year I got hurt and I suffered a brain injury, and
Ouch.
I took a year off and I didn't do anything for a year, and I thought, well, maybe I won't do anything again, and it just for some strange reason it didn't happen, right? The opportunities just, every time I tried to shut that door, and then the window opened, right? So I guess it's some of it must be fate or meant to be or whatever. But as far as like accomplishments, I'm not quite sure. Like I said, I originally this was never ever part of the plan. The plan was to win and bullshit my way through some contest and friggin', and never ever thought I'd win it. And then, and then just kind of went from there, right? So I guess the goal is for now, just, hopefully get finished writing what I'm writing now and get it out and get it completed on time, and, and then just not worry about what comes next.
All right, that's cool. All right, Dennis.
So my main goal is that I would love it if the books could pay for themselves. Like if I moved enough books either through the Kickstarter or through conventions or whatever it was to just offset the cost of making the book, and then maybe a little bit extra, because there are other stories that I would like to tell, not in the same universe, like totally different themes, settings, and all that jazz. But I'm not going to start those other books if I'm already like in a very deep hole with these. So my main goal would be that the books at some point pay for themselves, so then I can write these other stories and make these other books and have different books coming out at different times and all that stuff. And I suppose like super crazy, not really a goal, but I guess a pipe dream would just be, it'd be kind of cool to see it as like an animated TV show or something like that, like a Castlevania style, and definitely not live action. They just don't do werewolves very well live action for the most part. So I'd rather see like a Castlevania-esque animated series. That'd be fun. I get that question a lot. They're like, oh, would you like to see it on like Amazon or Netflix? I'm like, yeah, sure, but not live action.
American Werewolf in London. Come on.
They don't do practical anymore, though. They do like not great CG, or like I met a guy at a con who had a werewolf movie, and he had the actual werewolf costume behind him, and the mouth doesn't move. So the mouth's just stuck open all the time. And I'm like, so the whole movie, the werewolf's just got his mouth open. And they're like, yep, you just cut away real fast. I said, okay, this is why I don't want to do live action movie.
Gotcha. You just see the guy who's in it. You just see his eyeballs through the mouth. All right, cool. Tom, what are you looking to achieve, man?
So when I started comics, my whole thing was I want to get to Critter 100. That was my thing.
Nice.
And just like has been talked about here, people are like, you can't do that. People don't even do 5 issues. And I'm like, I'm going to do Critter 100. And when it happens, I'm going to take the issue, I'm going to smear it in your face. Like that's the chip that has been on my shoulder for a long time. So, we had a really nice run when we were doing Comics Monthly. Everything kind of went crazy when we went to Aspen, and now we've been back with crowdfunding. So Critter's been off schedule for like 5 years, and I'm really excited to get back to it. And we'll be done with Critter 25 as of this arc, and then we'll be working on. I'm already actively working on what will be volume 7, which will take us to issue 30 in 2026. So that's sort of the pie in the sky. Like let's do that. Let's make that happen. But then along the way, I have all these other stories that I'm writing too, which again takes away from just doing that one character because I have too much in my brain that I have to get out. So sort of the sub goals is I want to finish my stories, because all these other stories that I have, Penny for Your Soul, Ursa Minor, and so on, Legend of Oz, they all have finales. Like I know where they end. I'd like to be able to sort of put a series to bed at the same time, be like, hey, we've done our 10 volumes of this thing, and now it's complete, it's finished, it's done, and it's no longer in here, and I can create new things as we go forward. So that's all of these books are in not ending in the next arc or anything, but every time we do an arc, it's like you kind of feel like, hey, we're one step closer to actually finishing this thing. And then you just hope that whatever finale you have planned is good enough for the fans to be like, wow, that's a nice bookend to this whole thing. So I want to finish what we have, and then if I can manage to live long enough to get Critter to 100, that'll be great.
All right, cool. Tom, let it be known, I think you'll make it.
I'm going to make sure somebody needs a comic in their face, so I'm going to make sure that it happens.
You can rub it in mine, because I'll just take it and be like, thank you.
Thanks for the comic, Tom.
Exactly. I'm like, thanks.
I'll sign it for you before I smear it in your face.
All right, cool. I'd appreciate that. Yes. All right, cool. For myself, it's similar to Tom. It's just to complete the series, to complete the Oswald Chronicles, complete Tall Tales, complete Dreamweavers, complete Magi's Grace, and there's a couple other series that are floating around. Reaver eventually gets to something called Starpoint, Dreamweavers, all this different stuff. So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting next few years. It's just when it comes down to that, because I'm starting to get to a point where I'm actually looking at moving back into the direct market and moving Oswald into color. It's going to be an interesting next few years. So we'll see what happens. But gentlemen, we made it to hour 2. You guys are all great and fantastic. Thank you so much. And let's start with Dennis, please. Where can they find you and your work, sir?
You can find me on all social media, either at World's Most Okayest DM, which is my show name from the podcast I'm on, and also at Hive Head Studios. You can find my books on the Kickstarter right now, at least for the next 11-ish hours, at likenbook.com. But if you'd also just like to catch up with the other stuff, I have a website, hiveheadstudios.com. I've had a podcast now for 8 years now. It's a D&D podcast. It's like an improv comedy show draped in the loose skin of Dungeons and Dragons. It's called Botched, a D&D podcast, and our current season is set in the SCP universe. So if you're familiar with that, we don't particularly take anything super, super serious, but it's like a little funny, a little horrific, all that kind of stuff. And you can find that on all your podcatchers at Botched Podcast.
Cool. Sean, where can they find you and your work, sir?
So right now I'm on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, anywhere I can find it. Someone can look at the book. Sean Wood _writer. And that's all across the board.
All right, cool. David, where can they find you and your work, sir?
Nice. Yeah, you can find me on my website, correcthandedcomics.com, and any social media. If you type in correct-handed, that big blue left hand will pop up, and you can like, follow, share, comment, all that good stuff.
All right, cool. Aaron?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Humphrey's Illustration. My last name is spelled on there. RES at the end. Just like I have a website and then Big Cartel. I think it's Humphrey's Illustration at Big Cartel. If you type it into Google, it'll come up. That's where I sell all my stuff right now. So, yep.
All right. Cool. Peter?
I'm on Facebook. I some of the titles are available on Global Comics, you know, and then the other ones, I guess you just find through preview. So I'm going to be a featured guest at Fog City Comic Con in May, and East Coast Comic Convention in. I'll be a featured guest there in June, and then for the Freddie Beach Fan Fest, I'm going to be a featured guest there in August. So if you're in Atlantic Canada, you know, then drop by.
All right, cool. Mr. Tom, where can they find your work, sir?
Yeah, so we pretty much live on Facebook, and then everything filters out from there. You guys are welcome to friend me up as Tom. We have the Big Dog Inc. page on Facebook as well. We're on the X, we're on the Instagram, we're on the TikTok, all those things. BDI Comics, and you know, we have a Patreon as well. If you like to watch how the soup is made, that's what we do on our Patreon. You get to watch everything go from logos to lines to designs to colors to finished product. Yeah, that's like I was saying earlier, I'm going to be at a ton of conventions starting in May and June. So we'll be all over the country traveling around again.
All right, cool. So you can find me here just about every Sunday of the damn year. Although I do on occasion take one off. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those different places. I'm at JD Calderon, theOswaldChronicles.com, TallTalesOnline.com, and currently on Kickstarter with Magi's Grace. Another 18 days, so go check it out. And just to let everybody know, in the show notes, all the links to all these creators' campaigns and websites, they're in the show notes. So click on those links, go buy those books. These are fantastic creators. They all deserve your support. So please go help them out. Go buy some great books. And one more time, just remember, read more books. Read indie comics, read more indie comics, especially ours. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, man.